Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael. Today I have with me is Rachel.
Hi.
And we will be talking about Starfinder.
Starfinder. It's like regular Pathfinder, but in space.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard this here. Pathfinder is making a new style. And it's pretty much, as Rachel said, in space, lost in space. Make all the jokes you can about pushing people out of airlocks. But the biggest things that we can see is they will have their core rulebook and first adventure path, quote unquote, volume released in August 2017 at Gen Con.
Mm.
It's still a far ways off, but it still gets me a little concerned.
Well, I think we're both concerned for probably the exact same reasons. And I think the first one is really that we're wondering whether or not this is going to be a full game with its own adventures and its own universe and everything like that, or if it's just Pathfinder that is space flavored, kind of like when a story gets to a certain point, they think that the only thing they can do at that point to up the ante is to have it in space.
Yeah, that's exactly. Anyone who's going to listen to this, that's going to be the major thing because from all we've read, and there's very limited stuff, everything just strikes us as flavoring. Though this is a 3.5 system, so it's more crunchy, more numbers based that you have to think on. For good and for bad, they didn't take a step to go, we're going to do what D&D 5th edition did, and streamline it to pretty much a good direction, I feel.
Hmm. But right now, the whole number crunchy thing has kind of gone out of popularity with a lot of people, and so they really want to have it be a little more streamlined these days. So, kind of wondering what's going to happen with that. Also, we're we've been told there's different races, there's new classes,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different things going on here. That the old Pathfinder is compatible. Not sure how that works, considering that according to their own storyline, um, I feel like we should start from the beginning, but apparently, according to the new storyline, everybody has forgotten what happened to the current world that everybody in Pathfinder was in, and they don't remember anything, but they're in space. And there's all kinds of other weird stuff going on, like, well, why don't you explain the whole thing with the faster than light travel?
Oh yeah, this is the one thing. Faster than life travel was not discovered or engineered. It was gifted to people by an ascended AI deity.
So literally Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, this is where, as much as they're doing good to keep Pathfinder's materials to a certain degree relevant in Starfinder, that you can transfer things over and have classes and races from the previous thing in there, that little line is already made me very antsy. Because, let's face it, instead of having a race or a species evolve and learn and create, we're giving you the fancy stuff right away. And as a DM, learning about giving your players fancy and cool shit, that breaks everything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things to be antsy about because there are a lot of things that have not been explained yet fully, and they're saying that they can't give you enough information about certain things because it would require giving you the whole system and all this other stuff like that. But one of the big things I think is the spaceships and wondering how it all works together because we've come to understand that there are new classes and stuff, but I'm not necessarily sure whether or not your class defines what role you have on the
Mm-hmm.
ship, and I kind of think it should. And
Oh, yeah.
whether or not all of your stats are going to affect how well you do that job on the ship, because I feel like there's a lot of story possibilities with that,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't been told about how all this stuff makes sense. But they've explained that there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole ship combat system.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, with all these things, my idea is you have multiple tiered roles in a science fiction story. And one of the things that you see in any D&D, how do you synergize your race with your class? And I mean, they have 7 races. 2 of them are not announced. Essentially, you got your humans, you have your rat people, you have androids, and they have a couple other words, kashatas, stuff like that. But essentially, like, how do those fit in within, as Rachel pointed out, how do they fit in the role as being a starfinder, or being a person on a starship?
Yeah.
And it kind of begs the question, like, what the hell do we have with this? Like, is this just random stuff put together on a table?
But for example, I mean, when I was talking about how your skills in the ship, your role in the ship could ultimately affect the story and everything like that is, like, for example, is there a ship's navigator? If there's a ship's navigator and you mess up your role, could you accidentally warp people to a completely different place that nobody's ever been before?
Mm-hmm.
And you end up wanting to go one place, but then you end up someplace entirely different.
Oh yeah, well then that would actually, that's a very good thing, because with space travel like that, this is why we're very much interested, but still tenuous, because what Rachel had described about if you fail a roll, you can be thrown off. There are games like Rogue Trader that you do have space travel. You can mess up your jumps, and these are important questions. And one of the other questions I do have is that how do you mix science fiction with fantasy and magic, which is also a part of the system? It is not just technology, cyberpunk, got whatever punk you want to say to it, but it's also magic, because they claimed one of their examples of this very good hybriding is an Iomedae Crusader wearing holy quote unquote power armor with a plasma cannon with magical ruins. This is the stuff that they're pointing out and saying is part of their universe. I don't feel really that engaged with it. It don't, as I said, it just seems like a fluff. Yay, you got magical
Yeah,
ruins.
seems like a lot of fluff, and there's a lot of things to really be concerned about going into this, especially with the way that it's been described. I remember going down the list of things they were talking about with gameplay, and one of the things that they were talking about is tone-wise, it's like Star Wars. Okay, how is it like Star Wars? They haven't explained.
Mm-hmm. Oh
It's
yeah.
like we would really like the system to be all these different things, but I feel like they're trying to use these things like Star Trek and Firefly
Mm-hmm.
and all these different things to try and ride on the coattails of that until instead of explaining why I need to be interested in this universe, why this universe is cool,
Mm-hmm.
and what I need to know about this to really get super excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, with this jump, I personally prefer. I know the audience is gonna of Pathfinder, Starfinder are gonna build better stories than this company ever will. It's one of the fundamental things I've learned as a DM, and I believe Rachel has learned as a DM, is that your audience, your players, will build a better story than you will. And
I am a new DM. I am a new.
mm-hmm.
I'm growing on. It's growing on me. It's a process. But
Yes. Well, that's the biggest thing, is with all these styles, we need to come to terms with how does this gameplay work. They have not pointed out anything of the physical mechanics other than 3.5. And you're using mechanics and ideas of technology and weapons that don't really fit in properly. It's why I referenced Death Watch, Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, because they have an interesting system of mixing magic science
hmm.
together.
And I'm wondering how for example you're going to deal with the fact there are different kinds of ships. Like what kind of
Oh well,
ship do
if
you
they
get
do, if they do that, well, that's the other thing.
if they do it?
That's the other thing. That's a whole nother topic. I think we'll have another day. But how do you work with the ships? Like that's
Yeah.
well, that's the other thing, is not only with ships. They actually pointed out what type of actual physical core. Let me be specific. Core classes you have, and
Jeez. Yeah.
they have 7 of them.
Wow.
Well, that's the thing, is it's a good start, but it's something that bothered me because I'm going to use 5th edition. They have I can't remember how many core classes are in there, but they have a lot of subclasses that work together. And
Oh, jeez.
yeah,
Sounds like a lot.
you're already looking at, like, you're looking at something like this with all the add-ons I saw in Pathfinder in 3.5. I mean, let's start off with the first core class, Technomancer. He's a magical hacker of technology and magic blend. Right then there, I just thought of Arcane Trickster from 5th edition.
Hmm.
I mean, we'll go more detail for each of these classes later on, but there's a lot of stuff. I'm just going to rattle them off here for you guys, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But Mechanic, Engineer with Robot Buddy, essentially a Druid Ranger mix. Solarian, Mystic Combat that harnesses the cycles of the sun, Eldritch Knight of some sort. Soldier, Heavy Weapon Specialist. The only thing, there's no real proper equivalent, but all I can get is basic proper warrior. Envoy Diplomat, Ally Booster, aka Bard. Mystic, channeling energy and manipulating biological systems. Only proper magical class that it seems like to me. And Operator Stealth Skill Specialist, aka Rogue. And of all those skills, all those classes...
Yeah. Are you limited to what you can do on the ship by your class is what I'm wondering in all this. Because can a warrior with a lower intelligence score be able to do certain things with computers and vice versa, and be able to fire weapons on the ship? And also, with the ship, it should be absolutely scary, like petrifying, to go out into space in a clunker. Because you're thinking, oh gosh, is one good shot gonna breach a hole in the side, and then you're all sucked into the cold vacuum of space?
Well, that's exactly that. There's a lot of things of your classes that you just hear out there is already making every person who wants to see the system salivate, and I'm more like I'm salivated, and then I'm stopping and thinking like this is going to cause some big problems because I mean the Solarian talks about combat harnessing the cycles of the stars. My only idea with that, like as good as I did that, why couldn't you make these people the ability of teleporting from planet to planet or using that to energize and transverse the universe? Because if you're harnessing the powers of the stars, that would kind of be almost like an engineer thing, or, oh my god, I have a ship that has no technology, but I'm using my magic of the stars to propel me forward. These are actually mechanics that sound, even just by their base explanation, sounds like a very good viable thing for a player.
Yeah, it sounds actually really cool. But it seems like a really huge undertaking, and I feel like they've only scratched the surface of really what the average player wants to know, because this is a huge investment, or potentially a huge investment for anybody who wants to pick up the book, to pick up to pick up an adventure and things like that. That's really why there's a lot to go through when you invest in tabletop. Oh. And probably one of the many reasons we're doing this podcast right now is because I think it's good to discuss this with other consumers like ourselves and people who really love this hobby.
Oh yeah, I fell in love with this hobby, and Rachel will have the episode talking about why I became a DM.
Yes.
But and this is the thing, is that they even talked about how, don't worry guys, we're going to make this affordable and not do crazy releases. And those who knew Pathfinder, they had a tendency to jumble a lot of book releases, and those prices added up very quickly. It's one of the other reasons why I was not one of the minor reasons why I didn't jump into Pathfinder. But the other thing was essentially that, like, the one good thing about Pathfinder is you buy the core rulebook and the monster manual, or bestiaries, whatever they call them. That's essentially all you need. Technically, I think you can just go with the core rulebook, which helps a lot. It has a lot of the stuff jam-packed in there for about 50, 60 bones, roughly the same price as the core rulebook or handbook for D&D. And this idea of trying to be open for as many people as possible, it's an expensive hobby if you really want to start as a newbie. As a rookie getting into this, starting off, you are going to have a tendency to buy a lot of the initial stuff. And most people buy the first story package, or maybe two of them, to get an understanding of how to write. And that's, yet again, what I did to learn.
This is probably not for first-timers. This system right here that we're looking at, it's probably not going to be good for a first-time DM. They're probably better off with something like 5th edition, or something else that's really, really flexible to start out with.
Yeah.
because it seems like it's going to be a lot. When we're talking about the core rulebook in the bestiary, just from the stuff that they're talking about with having a separate combat system for the ships and possibly different kinds of ships that you're going to be looking at. They'll probably have pictures of them and stats and everything. You're looking at probably a pretty fat core rulebook.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern with Starfinder is they're trying to. They did even say in one of their things, they're going to be Pathfinder's legacy of diversity and inclusion. And one of the things is with a system like this that is 3.5, it is clunky now when you see a lot of other systems that have streamlined it. For good and for bad, I'm not saying it's an evil thing to keep the crunch or an evil thing to get rid of the crunch. It's just that inclusion of when you have a number skill ceiling of looking at numbers, it will push people inevitably away. You'll only keep the hardcore, and there's nothing wrong with the hardcore, but you're going to see people seeing all these numbers and freak out. Especially first-time DMs, especially when I saw the numbers
and also
time.
First-time players. I'm really wondering whether or not a first-time player is going to look at this, if they've never done anything like it before, and be like, ah! Because they'll be like, oh, I want a ship. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do all these things. And then they're like, wow, this is math.
Yep. As I learned as a DM, and Rachel has learned as a DM, there is a lot of math on the backside for 5th edition. There is a lot of math mechanically for Pathfinder, because I did play a bit of Pathfinder about 8 months to a year of Pathfinder, and when you start building and doing this stuff, there's a lot of math going on. Now, I'm for those in Pathfinder are going to chastise me. No, there isn't, Michael. But it's like when you're starting out and you don't know anything, when you're thinking, I got this bonus here, then this bonus here, you're flat-footed versus expecting attacks, stuff like that. Those numbers, when you're not used to it, they start freaking you out and they start overwhelming you. And that's what I don't want with a system, because I love to get my hands on systems.
And if you're in a group full of people who have been doing this for years, and you, because I know that that's probably what you may or may not find yourself going into if this is your first time. You're going to go in there and just going to be a bunch of people who have probably 5 years on you, and you're going to be like, I have no idea what to do.
Or our friend Brandon, the homicidal guinea pig, 2 decades.
Jesus, yeah, that is a lot. That is a lot.
Mm-hmm. It adds up. And yet again, anyone who's interested in doing Pathfinder or any role-playing, find a guy who has years of experience, even just one, and you ask around to help them. Because, Brandon, I thank you. You've been a valuable, helpful person.
Yes. Yes, you have. Thank you, Mr. Guinea Pig.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of help, the game claims to be having moral ambiguity.
So, wait, does that mean that we're going to have... Are we going to have alignments or not? Because that's really important.
Yeah,
because I'm wondering about that.
That's the one thing I hear, moral ambiguity, and I get the idea that they're pitching out alignments, and that's, for me, who has dealt with people who have a hard time handling alignments, it makes me really edgy. Mainly because I'm going to use Legend of the Five Rings. They don't have an alignment system. However, they have something comparable to it, like honor, glory, and fame, to balance out how you act.
Yeah.
Rachel has played Dark Heresy with me, and there is no alignment, period. But there's reputation with different factions, which is the compensating factor. And you've seen how that's gone in Jim the Dumpster Baby.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, but basically what we're dealing with here with a lack of with alignments or a lack thereof is when there aren't alignments, there are certain individuals who they'll take that as I can do whatever I want. But the thing that balances out a lack of alignment is sort of this willingness for other players or for the world to take your actions and hold you accountable for it. But there are harsher repercussions for your actions in those worlds that don't have an alignment.
And one of my ideas, and it just hit me kind of after our first take, was when it comes down to alignments, since there's no alignments, is there a possibility that we'll have culture affect who you are? So if you're born on a specific planet, you'll have a specific disposition, or you're a specific race, you'll have a specific disposition, because if they do something like that, I will be piqued, that will pique my interest, thinking like Star Trek, Klingons have this disposition, so they're going to be acting in more this type of alignment choice, which would be a very good way of kind of clinking people down from going moral ambiguity. I can be chaotic neutral and kill everyone and expect you to handle it.
Yeah, and another thing I'm wondering whether or not they're going to play off of, and I've seen this from other genres and stuff. What they'll do is they'll look at space kind of like the Old West, like that, like new frontiers, and so there's a sense of honor like there was in the Old West, and there's a lot of things going on there because there are different species and they have different kinds of tensions and things like that. And what tends to hold things together is, like I said, that sense of honor, kind of like in Legend of the Five Rings. Like,
yep, and that's kind of my biggest thing. And Rachel, I will agree with me, is that you need that balancing factor for teams to work together, not just because you're friends, but to kind of give people guidelines to understand of how to play. And speaking of play, the setting, the main world where all this is gone, and people are going to want to find their Pathfinder character in this world, and that's kind of one of the things they're trying to hide. Gameplay-wise, you do know that if they write a story campaign book for that, everyone's going to lose their mind, and it's story-wise, I don't think it was wise to have that planet lost. It probably would have been better just thousands of years later, so this world is completely something else, or immediately remove it from the equation like it was destroyed due to war, because it's fantasy world. They're going to come up with their own version of magical nukes.
Yeah, it's just there's so many questions, and I don't feel like enough of them have been answered overall. I almost feel like they're kind of bullshitting us. I want to believe. I want to be a believer. I want to get excited. I want to think, yeah, let's do a Cowboy Bebop kind of story and be bounty hunters in space with our awesome ship, just be going through the cosmos. But at the same time, I wonder if maybe they've gotten in over their head and maybe they're bullshitting us a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of am leading at the fluff and the BS line right now, because I'm very much hoping for a great revival, a return to Crunch, because I like to make a response to Nerdarchy when they said Crunch is dead. I just think it's fallen out of favor. I kind of like the idea of Crunch because that little bit of Pathfinder I played, it did give me the ability to really make some nuanced characters mechanically and role-playing wise. That 5th edition, as of right now, I don't feel I got that exact perfect character I want, but I'm not holding that against either one of the systems. Each has their advantages, and I just hope Starfinder can bridge the gap of 3.5 and 5th edition, so you kind of have a little more, okay guys, we're cutting out the BS, we're cutting out the fat, we're going to make this a lean, fun game that you have an easier time getting into, but later levels you can really get into the nuance of creating a person, your character, yourself, or what have you, in this fantastical science fiction magical world, which I never believed to even say that in one line easily.
And I really want to know what sort of stories and what kind of planets that we're going to be dealing with, what the culture of those planets are going to be. I think that is incredibly exciting, and I really look forward to that overall, because I don't want to necessarily do games with other stories, other sci-fi genres that these people are trying to say, oh, it's tone-wise, it's like Star Wars, or like Firefly, or like all these other things. Like, I want to know what Starfinder is like. I want to know how this is different from everything else, and not them riding on the coattails of this stuff. I want to be a believer, like I said.
Yes.
Want to get excited.
We're not holding our breaths, but we're very hopeful. Thank you for all of us at the Drunken Tarrasque. Please listen to us again. We will be talking about Pathfinder more and more, what we think. We'll be doing our talks on games, building characters, how to build very good characters, and this is not just us pulling out of our backsides, but from years of
From
experience.
experience, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and bringing
all the
on
good
guests.
stuff.
Yeah, all the
Yes.
good stuff.
All right. Have a nice night.
Thank you, guys. Bye.